What up, y'all? It's Mateo Montmon Shimon here, chilling at home. I want to talk to you today about the internal and the external. The two places we can live. We can live in the external world, focused on external events, people, places, exciting things that are going on in the external world, or we can look internal and live within. And of course, we can do them both. But how do we choose where to live? How do we choose how to live? And what might be the best step for all of us moving forward? So, a center of focus on the external world will lead us consuming from external sources. And we will be focused on that which is outside of us. Most of the time is things that we cannot necessarily control. And that's placing the focus on the external world. Internal focus on the internal world, is focusing within our bodies, our physical body, our emotions, our mental body, and our spiritual body, and focusing on cultivating health and happiness and strength in an internal level. So what we have right now in the world is, according to how I view it, is an unnecessarily concentrated focus on the external and a lack of awareness of the internal world. It's my belief right now, at least, that the most powerful way that we can actually have an effect on that external world around us and realize whatever it is that we see is wrong or that we want to change with the external world, it's my belief that the best way to get there is actually to focus on the internal, focus on the self. And for a lot of people, it sounds selfish, but really, our internal world, our internal awareness, love, and appreciation for who we are is naturally going to be reflected in our external world and our actions that have an effect on the world around us. So here we have it. If we focus on the internal, we focus on bringing ourselves to the highest sense of health and wellness that we can. Because we're going to be taking care of ourselves on that physical level. And we're going to be breathing in a way that's in accordance with nature, balanced on the physical level. And we're going to be eating the food and drinking the water that's going to help us maintain and actually attain health and wellness. And of course, being aware and acknowledging and appreciating the emotional body, the emotional center, the heart, realizing we live just as much in the heart as we do the mind, is going to be a huge step in our awareness that we are multifaceted beings with infinite potential. And the infinite potential starts at the heart here. So we have the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body. Are we being mentally stimulated always by external sources? So are we always going to be going for the media and the cell phones and all these external sources of the TV and the radio? Or are we going to start to focus on some internal cultivation? Reading, it's kind of in between because we're taking an external source, but then we're processing it through our own mental narrative here. But even better is creating, is doing, is stimulating your mind in a way that's it comes from the self, it's self-cultivated. So we're actually really building our own internal cultivation that's not necessarily focused on the external. Of course, we could always use the guides of the external. We could learn lessons and understand from the external, but are we cultivating the mental space, or are we just consuming from the external world? Now, of course, the connection with spirit, something that science seems to deny because we don't necessarily have any way of measuring it in any specific capacity, but pretty much all ancient cultures, all peoples who are living in a more interconnected way with the flow of nature, with the natural flow of the universe, they understood, they still understand that there is a divine connection that each and every one of us has. In fact, all the plants and all the animals, all the minerals, all the planets, everything in existence is divinely interconnected in a way that we could never really understand using those other senses we have. So we couldn't even really understand it from a physical, and not even an emotional, not even a mental way, but we have our spiritual body. The spirit is what's actually able to perceive, understand, and directly connect with the interconnectedness of the universe. So when we talk about internal focus, internal awareness, we're talking about the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual bodies, cultivating, appreciating, and honoring these bodies in a way that will allow us to be aligned, to be fully activated, to be fully entrenched in who it is that we want to become. Now that's what we call, sometimes some people will call that internal alchemy. So we're working, turning our base personality of lead into gold, connection with everything around us. And so that happens on a physical level in many ways. Now, if you can think about the external application of alchemy, that's external, outside of ourselves. That's trying to turn lead into gold physically with the metals, not on that subtle inner energetic field. So with this overstimulated focus on the external world, we're always forcing our opinions and our feelings and our actions on those around us. And we're doing so because our center of focus is external, it's outside of ourselves. Therefore, we want to affect and to change that which has our focus. So if our focus is on the internal, and let's talk about the two big events here we have COVID-19. If the center of focus is on the internal, well, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make myself support my system, my whole body, in its ability to defend myself from whatever's around me, including COVID. So that's putting myself in the best position, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, to handle whatever's coming with me. And if I put myself first, and maybe I do have an underlying condition, whatever we have, if I put myself first and I say, well, my center of focus is going to be internal. Of course, it's a balance. I'm aware of the external world. I'm aware of what's going on in the world to a certain degree, but my focus is on the internal world. What can I do for myself that will put me in the best position? I'm focused on the internal, and we each come to that decision ourselves. So for me, it might be continuing to exercise, to eat right, to maybe strengthen my relationship with the divine, with God, maybe build community, even if it has to be via Zoom, right? For another person, they might say, you know what? Best thing for me right now, I'm just going to be in my apartment. I'm going to read books. I'm going to cultivate whatever it is that I want to cultivate internally. But when our center of focus is external, we're trying to affect this thing that's really, we can't really affect it because it's external to ourselves. And so we're constantly going to be trying to force our opinions and our views and our ideas on those around us thinking that we might know what's best for them, when really we all know what's best for us inside, but we don't necessarily know what's best for everyone else. So focus on the internal, and then magically, if you focus on the internal, you will live in a way that's in harmony, in balance, in the flow of nature, that will actually bring you whatever desire you had of changing the external world in a natural, balanced, non-forcing, flowing way. And then we have the death of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. Now, an external focus is going to be focused on what certain people are saying and doing, and this is going to cause a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, might cause a lot of love, a lot of appreciation, a lot of compassion. There's a lot of emotions that'll come from that. But a lot of times, we're triggered when we focus on the external. Now, for me, and for a lot of people, take this same example, and if we're able to focus on the internal, if I'm really able to come into my internal awareness on all of those physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies, and reflect, then I can go deeper and I can really respond myself with a completely new awareness of how I can continue to improve myself and love myself and appreciate myself, even given the fact that maybe I wasn't completely aligned where I wanted to be aligned at a certain point, a certain place in time. Or maybe there's still things that I want to work on when it comes to understanding these issues and where I want to be. But if I want to be a loving, appreciative, compassionate, caring person for all beings, obviously including those fellow brothers and sisters in our society that are treated a lot worse for many reasons, the process is not of an external one forcing my view onto others. It's going to be an internal process of awareness, of cultivation of that love and compassion. And by very nature of the laws of nature, because there are immutable laws of nature, based on those laws, what is internal to me will be reflected in the external world. So by the very nature of me living in alignment with that love and compassion and appreciation and care for the fellow human beings that we reside around and the fellow animals. Look at this, we even have a nice guest here. And the fellow animals, being appreciative of all of it on the internal plane, will only be reflected on my external world. And I don't necessarily need to even force any opinions or feelings down to anyone. Because me living in alignment and you living in alignment with your greater self, your higher self, and stepping into that internal alchemy that we all have, that is exactly what's going to put you in alignment with all of those things that you care about. All of these movements, all this compassion and love and appreciation. And also maybe there's some anger and frustration and division that we might be feeling, but we focus on the internal, it's naturally going to flow into the external world around us. So I know I covered a lot of topics there. It's a long video, but that's really for me what it's all about, is about focusing on the internal world. Because right now the external world is so confusing. There's so many people talking. There's so many people with opinions. There's so many people that are trying to get into our minds, into our bodies, and share whatever they want to share, for good or bad. So that's what it comes down to, is just really just focusing on the internal, cultivating that tree. You're a tree inside. You're the tree of life right there. the seed of life, the flower of life, opening up, blossoming, blooming, growing your fruits, turning your lead into gold. Because that's the true alchemy, the internal alchemy that we all have inside. So there you have it. Where's your center of focus? I know mine's been on the external world a lot. Sometimes I bring it internally. Right now I'm focused on balancing the two, awareness of the external world while staying focused on the internal, what I can focus on. That's where I'm at, sharing this video with you. Much love, peace and love, peace and love, peace and love.